Public Safety Committee. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderman Nerger.
Here.
The second is the approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda, and would anybody on the committee like to make any changes? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as approved, or as submitted, I should say. Our third point on the agenda today is citizen comments, and we allow a couple of opportunities for our residents to be heard with regard to public safety issues. If there is anybody in the audience electronically or anybody here today who wishes to address this committee with regard to any public safety issue, please step forward. I'll recognize you for a period of 3 minutes. Please give us your name and address. Thank you. I declare the citizen comment portion of this meeting closed. Madam City Administrator, do you have a report for us?
Yes, we do, and there are multiple speakers, so we will start with Chief Spees. Mayor Dimmitt has asked us to explore electric vehicles and how we incorporate it into our fleet of vehicles.
Good afternoon, everyone. About 10 days ago or so, Bola asked me to do a little research on electric vehicles. We are encouraged, I guess is a good word, in looking at the electric vehicles for police, and that there's been a lot of changes made. I still think there's a path that they will get to that we don't see yet, especially as to whether or not they will hold up against the chronic driving of police officers, and it can idle time and other things can really wear on a car. Obviously 24,000 miles a year is what we're averaging. But as we looked at the EV cost comparison, Chevrolet is putting out a new Blazer that you can order starting in, that's if the people ever go back to work for the UAW. You could order it, I don't know when they're going to be built because of that strike, in the spring. It's about $10,000 or $11,000 more than what we currently are paying for the Chevrolet model of the Tahoe. So the upfront cost is there. When you start looking at some of the other costs, there are 3 charger levels to install. We don't think that we would need the most expensive one, which is the level 3, which charges the vehicle very quickly. The level 2 seems to be the best fit for us. So when you look at the level 2 installation, it's around $1,500 just for the installation. Of course, you've got, as you look at over a charging process over a year for each car, there's a cost of business to do that for the charging process. And that is often dictated about the time that you do the charging. There's a variance in that cost. So the yearly fuel costs for the gasoline model engine vehicles, it's a considerable savings, as you can see in the attachment. So there is a consideration for that. Some of the things in the notes that we were concerned with was just I'm not going to read this because I'm sure that you've reviewed it, but a couple of things of interest is the last one, for example, the depreciation value of an electric vehicle, especially a police vehicle. We really don't know what they're going to be worth at the end of the day, even though the manufacturers are warranting their batteries in these cars at 10 years now. That's a concern in replacing the batteries in any electric vehicle. But as we would try to turn these cars over, obviously that would be a consideration for somebody that was buying the car. There's a couple other things to consider on that list. Heat and cold can affect the duration of these cars. They claim to last around 250 hours, which probably we could get 2 shifts out of before charging. And again, we really don't know until we get one and play with it. So it depends on how it holds up, how all of the equipment in a police vehicle will drain the battery. There's extensive pieces of equipment in our cars, from the police radio to the ticketing machine to in-car camera system. So there's really a lot of question marks about how they're gonna, the batteries how long it will last. We would have to switch over the station, obviously, and there was another one of our alderpersons asked about doing some version of a solar panel on the station that would power these things in order to be in line with that sustainability package, so that's a consideration. I don't know the cost of installation for those, but I guess that's something that we could look at down the line if the board decided they would are really serious about doing this. The monthly cost, about as close as we could come to for charging, is around $60 per month per vehicle. So that's obviously considerably less than what we're paying for fuel for these cars. There are some other models that are coming out. Ford is putting out their Mustang model of a police vehicle. Apparently it's not selling very well. It's little, and it's a challenge to get all that equipment and officers into it. So next year they're putting out a model of the Expedition, which is a bigger SUV and can hold a lot more equipment, has a lot more space. As we looked at that Mustang, Webster Groves has one, and we went and looked at that car. And while it's pretty, it's really not practical, honestly, for the police. So we would, as we look at the Ford models, we would probably look at either a pickup truck or that Expedition model. So the last thing I was going to mention is Dan Gummersheimer, and Dan, I'm hoping I'm not stealing Dan's thunder when he gets up here, but he's contacted Enterprise Leasing, and there is a lease option for not only these electric vehicles, but all of our police and fire cars, not fire trucks and ambulances, but the police vehicles and fire vehicles. So we'll be looking at that in terms of trying to save some money, maybe. The interesting thing about that is with Enterprise is that they put you on a schedule for replacement. So that's always a challenge for us, is to try and have enough cars and then keep them from the point where they hit high mileage and start breaking down and cost us a lot of money to repair. It's always a juggling act, and obviously when they go down, we are without cars, and so that becomes a challenge as well. So that enterprise leasing process is available through for these electric vehicles, so it's an option to look at as well.
Chief, I'm looking at that comparison, EV comparison, and I'm kind of zeroed in on the vehicle costs. I think you need to check your math on the Ford Tahoes, because at $46,000 times 4, that's roughly around $186,000, not $239 or $237.
Yeah, I think he was. It's about $15,000 to upfit those cars. I think that's part of the cost. I think when Sergeant Bowersox looks at it, maybe he's a little high on that though.
Yeah, because I'm not. I read that outfitting too, and I think you've got that down there lower on the next line.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does seem a little high. Yes.
Yeah, so that kind of widens the comparison between EV and gas.
Right.
The other thing, I guess you're willing, if you go down to a Blazer, that's like a mid-size SUV. Are you willing to go from full-size to mid-size?
So if you ask my opinion as I'm standing here today, a couple things about it. I would want to make sure that we put officers in that truck and drive it. So, and it'll be available somewhere here in St. Louis area eventually. So I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that the way they outfitted the Blazer is police specific, and they did a really nice job with it. It looks good. It has a lot of amenities in the car that the officers would appreciate. Just as an example, the seat is molded for a police officer, his gun and his duty leather, so that it doesn't rub and press on the officer and cause back issues. And that's just one example. So they've done a good job outfitting the car, but I wouldn't consider the vehicle until we drive it. And two, I don't think this is a 2024 option. That's just my opinion. I think they got to get on the street and drive them for a year and see how they do.
Well, in doing a comparison between EVs and gas, I mean, you want to use, I know we use Tahoes, but you'd want to use the same thing. So you'd want to compare the 2LT electric to the 2LT gas.
Right.
If that's the utility you want to use. And even that spreads the difference out even further.
It can, yeah. And the thing that I would, before we really would pull the trigger on this, I'd like to look at the Expedition as well when that comes out next year. So I think rushing into it may be a mistake, because these cars may bark back at the police. I don't know. We really don't know. They haven't been tested hard enough to know whether or not they're going to hold up. So a year's worth of driving probably makes sense on them to see.
Well, Bola, when we're deferring a lot of our capital expenses, I mean, to go take this luxury of parading EVs around. I mean, I'm all in favor for EVs. I think they'd be great in our planning and development department. But I just don't think currently the technology is there for the heavy capacity or utilization type things we need in public safety with the fire or police, maybe even public works. I just don't think that technology is there yet. And I just hope we wouldn't leap into something like this when we're deferring a lot of capital expenses in that end of the budget. And, you know, just to wave the EV flag around is my comment.
So we are not rushing into it. We are taking our steps very slowly. We do know that other municipalities around us have made the purchase, and I think just a week or two ago, we were told that a neighboring city intends to buy 2 a year until maybe they outfit their entire fleet. So we hope to conclude the budget process for '24 tomorrow. Chairwoman Sims. And so the budget is pretty much set, I hope. So there is no wiggle room for that in the '24 budget, we think. So this is future years, '25 possibly. And you're right, we're looking at all departments. It would be easier to go with planning development first, but it would be when their vehicles are scheduled for replacement, hopefully, that we would look at that. And there's an opportunity for Public Works and Parks, not trucks that they use for snow plowing. Dan, do you want to step up here? Because he does have additional information to add, and possibly fire. I haven't talked to you, the chiefs, about it, but there's a thought.
Yeah, I did actually look, I know way back when we looked at EVs for sanitation. So they're like $200,000 more. So I mean, a regular trash truck like we ordered for this year, it's like 250-ish, you know, but those are pushing 500 or so because you need, those actually need an even bigger charger. So they need the level 3 charger. You just can't get around those. I did actually get a quote. It's a legit quote, so if you wanted to buy it today, you could, but it's a EV street sweeper. It's a miniature one, so it's like half the size of the one we had, but it was $236, and it only needs a level 2 charger. It said it would operate for 9 hours. It's small enough, it doesn't need like a CDL driver's license. You know, I could operate it, anybody could operate it. It had like, some of the options would be like onboard water, so I could either run spray for the broom, or on the back there's like a wander hose and you could spray park benches or goose droppings or whatever. It had that, and then a vacuum line too. I think it had like a 20-foot length or 25, somewhere around there. But like for just picking up garbage, instead of using a little grabber tool, you would just turn the vacuum on, just grab it with the 4-inch suction line. So they do exist. So putting that in perspective, the diesel version of that was like 155,000. So it's still significantly more. But that, if it didn't operate the full 9 hours, say it's 7 or 8, you know, it's not the end of the world. Versus first responder, it's a big deal. And then when I did talk to Enterprise, they said the thing they're not sold on EVs is what is the resale value when they trade it, because they said typically they make money when they trade vehicles in every 2 or 3 years with that cycle. But they don't have an extensive history with electric vehicles, especially police. What would that market be? You know, what's the depreciation on it? If you bought it for 75 in 3 years, what's it worth? Is it 30? Is it 40? They don't know. You know, we're kind of guessing. They do know, like Tahoes, and as the chief spoke about, you know, they have a Chevy Tahoe police pursuit vehicle. There is the Ford Expedition hybrid, and then there's also the Ram 1500 truck. You know, they said that Ford is trying to, I guess, perfect the Lightning pickup truck to do some police service, but that's a ways down the line. And then the only other thing we had question-wise was like brakes. You know, I'd like to see the brakes, because the Chevy, it said it did 0 to 60 in like 3.2 seconds. So it's like, if you can go that fast forward, how do I stop it? It's got to have huge pistons and calipers and, you know, rotors, pads, everything's got to be way different than a conventional vehicle. You know, especially with the weight, because like the weight of the batteries and the weight of the vehicles, I'm sure considerably more than a conventional internal combustion.
What is the depreciation on our police vehicles? They're just the old-fashioned gasoline fueled.
I don't know. I know when we've sold stuff like on Gov deals, it's like we actually get really good money for like a Durango or something. I know Eric Lake is at my department.
What is good money?
He's sold one like this year for like $17,000. You know, and it had over 100,000 miles on it. I was surprised that you could get that much, but I mean, with used car prices being what
That's
they
a
are.
rarity. We weren't getting anything close to that before.
Right.
And for the police department, it might, do you know how much it would be less, because
It has gone up considerably.
it has to?
obviously, in the last
Okay.
couple of years. example, the car that was assigned to me, that was a 15 Durango, had 140,000 miles on it, and they were gonna get $15,000 for it on gov deals. So, I mean, these gas-powered cars it has gone up, I don't know the percentage, but it's gone up considerably since I started here 6 years ago. And they're typically almost always bought by another police department. So,
I will say, we took this up at our budget review, and nothing in the 2024 budget was to acquire an electric vehicle. I love the idea, and I think it has great potential. It seems like it'd be a good fit for the inspector, faster than our police vehicles, but I feel like you need to be satisfied with the car before we would leap into that. I wonder, it sounds like we can cheat off the homework of some other neighboring municipalities, but if it'd be possible, if in your networking, to some of the other larger cities in the country, I mean, to see how these are being incorporated. And I mean, I hope someday, I mean, and when it looks like it's appropriate, I think in the long run, it is a cost savings. There's going to be some upfront, but I certainly wouldn't want to, pick the wrong car and have it not work. Let's let another city make that mistake.
yeah,
and
it's scary
learn.
being the first one in the
Learn
pond.
from their wisdom.
Yeah. By the way, Dan was mentioning that Chevy Blazer, the braking system on that is, I think it'd stop a Mack truck. It is the highest level braking system you can put on a car. So they have planned their way out well in these cars. So
But they're a lot heavier.
They
They
seem
are a
like
lot
they
heavier.
keep getting better too. I mean,
Yeah.
as they iterate.
generally speaking, the whole technology obviously is still a baby, really. So yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us, when you have a shift change, I mean, are there 4 patrol cars out for every shift?
It depends on how many people we're working. It's either 3, 4, or 5, depending on that shift.
So that when you change shifts, guys just go gas up the car and off they go. How would an EV play into that?
So we drive around 100 miles a shift, roughly. Yeah, so, which is a lot for a small town like Brentwood. But so in theory, they could drive the car twice and not charge it. So we would drive it probably on a day shift, night shift, and then sit it, and then just rotate it like that. So every third shift that would sit, that's what I think we can do. The reality of it, it might be something different if we ever get these,
And is the police station, when the power is down, is that on a generator?
It is. It's an old generator.
Well, that's the other thing, because, and this, once again, all departments, and I'm not trying to badmouth EVs, but there is a lot of infrastructure that goes into powering those things. And if we have a tornado or the power goes out at wherever these things need to be charged, if that generator isn't big enough, powerful enough to take that 240 volt to 2 cars at a time,
Yep.
I mean,
It's definitely
you're
an
buying
issue.
a new generator to make that thing work properly.
Right.
Well, and you would think dangerous weather would be a time when first responders might be most on call.
Yeah. It's just things to consider.
Yeah, I share the same concerns as you do. I think it's best to let everybody else kind of be the guinea pigs on this. But you did mention that the enterprise lease option. I mean, what could it hurt to do that for 6 months or a year and then reevaluate at that time? So just a comment more than a question, but
Right.
figured I'd throw it out there.
I mean, to your point, Alderman Lockmiller, perhaps at some point it becomes a meld of both style vehicles, so you have something to go to if you lose your electric. I don't know. I like them too. I mean, they're cool and they're really fast and built well for us in law enforcement. So certainly not against the idea, but I'm kind of cautious person going into this. So.
You're not asking for any.
Oh, no, this is
official
just
action on that?
information.
I thought so. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Reports of committee chairs and aldermen. I have a report that's got nothing to do with public safety. Our son and daughter-in-law had their first child, our 5th grandchild, a baby girl. She is named for my daughter-in-law's grandmother. Her name is Winslow Jean, and she was born on the 19th of October, and everybody's doing really well. So that's my big report for public safety. Steve, do you have I'm sorry, Alderwoman Sims. Do you
No report other than to say congratulations
you very
on
much.
now being able to fill a basketball team with
That's
granddaughters.
that was the number one text I got back was WNBA, here we come. So anyway, yeah. Alderman Lockmiller,
Ditto that, congratulations.
thank you very much. Alderman Erger,
I'll third that. Congratulations. Nothing else to report.
thank you very much, everybody. As to our departments, Chief, do you have a report from the police?
I was going to go through, I'll be fairly brief, hopefully, crime report and just a couple of things to mention to you as we go through finishing up 2023. We're currently down 3 police officers. We had one who graduated from the police academy a few months ago, came out for about a collective 12 days and decided he did not like law enforcement and he left. We lost one to retirement, Major Jim McIntyre, as you guys are aware. So anyway, we have 3 openings at this point. We have offers. Correct on that, ma'am? To 2, right? Yeah. But we do have offers to 2, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we have 2 that we believe we're going to on board, and we're looking for a 3rd. So if any of you got somebody who'd like to be the police, please let us know. It's a real challenge to try and find somebody. Struggle these days. We are promoting, having promotion tests here at the end of the year in December, with the anticipation of promoting 2 lieutenants in January, and then follow down would be a sergeant and a corporal after those promotions are made. So we will start our testing process and hopefully get that to BOLA by the end of the year. We talked a lot about the police vehicle updates. We are talking to cities all around us that are saying they're being canceled for 2024 orders already. So we don't really know what this is going to look like in 2024, but we do know that the state of Missouri has released us from being required to go through a certain bid process, meaning that we can go out to bid, but we can go out to bid to whoever we wish at this point. So we will continue to try and figure it out. There's a dealership in Indiana that has some police vehicles available, so we're looking out there. With regard to recent crime trends, I think that all of you pay fairly close attention to the neighborhoods of Brentwood and what goes on. And we have had an uptick in vehicle crime in the last 30 days. But we went back and we compared 2022 to 2023. And just as an example, at this point last year, 2022, we had 35 stolen autos in Brentwood, which was way down from 2021 when COVID was with us. This year, we're at 23 stolen cars, so we're still 12 under last year, which is a little bit surprising, I guess, when you look at the activity we've had recently. To cover a few of those, in September, we had 5 separate car clotting incidents. A couple of them were multiple vehicles that were broken into at the same time. So when you look at counting the number of cars that were hit, Brentwood Forest was of particular interest in September. They hit a couple times hard in Brentwood Forest. They came back about a week ago and stole a car in Brentwood Forest, so it's always kind of a favorite spot to go for these guys because of its location and number of vehicles that are parked in the area. It gives them opportunity to do what they want to do. Interesting to note that, again, in September, out of the car clottings we had 2 vehicles as usual, that had guns in them, and they took the guns. So 2 more guns went on the street in those September car clotting cases. A couple other cases in September of interest. We had a sexual assault, kind of a groping incident that happened at Nordstrom Rack, and our officers did a great job. They saw the guy walking in the neighborhood, tried to stop him. He ran. At one point in this foot pursuit, which went on for quite a while, he jumped off the parking structure, and the officer thought he could look over the parking structure wall and see him laying on the ground, but he got up and ran away. He ended up getting caught. Warrants were issued on that case for a couple felonies on the guy for what he did at Nordstrom. On 9/30, so it's about 3 weeks ago now, we had yet another flock hit. We've had multiple flock hits in the last month. These cameras are really helping us a lot. We continue to jump cars, and we let them go, but they get the message to stay out of the neighborhoods to some degree. So this particular one, we had a flock hit, and the car went right by our police station, literally right down, right through the stop sign in front of our station. Seth Mundorf, Officer Mundorf, saw it, chased it down to Hanley where they had an accident, and 4 juveniles got out and ran, and 2 of them were taken into custody. So that was a good arrest at the end of September and helped us a little bit on our crime for that. Lucky's Massage Parlor, I was going to speak to that a little bit. As you know, last year we worked with the city and we closed it down. This is an organized group of people that are doing massages, and I'll just leave it nicely at that. When we closed them down, they reopened under a different name, and now it's called Lucky's something. And now they're going in apparently through the back door at night, leaving the door open and doing everything over the phone, and texting. So they continue. They're bold. They continue to be open, but we are on that. We actually are probably going to put some version of a little undercover sting on that back door, trying to catch some people going in and out of there, and hopefully arrest whoever's in there doing what they're doing, and they continue to violate the order that the city has given that it shouldn't be occupied or a business being run out of there. Our canine program continues to flourish. TJ and Red have been called out to on 4 different occasions in the last 3 weeks. Everything from a suicidal guy that was armed with a gun to guys bailing out of cars that were car clotters. So he's been very popular in our neighboring cities, and so we continue to show some success with that canine program as they track down our bad guys. In October, as we switched into October, there were a couple cases of note that I just wanted to talk about. In particular, we had, I think all of you are aware, on October 18th, we had a series right in a row of 3 armed robbery events right up by Nordstrom Rack. So this was 2 guys, hardened criminals, who came into Brentwood, I guess by chance, targeting women. Had video of them armed, masked up, coming into a car. Tried to take the First Lady's car, was unsuccessful. She was able to start her car and take off. The guy went through the parking lot and found a second woman getting in her car. Same thing happened. Amazingly, they then take off in their stolen car, switched cars, and came back about 4 hours later and did it again. This time they were able to rob a lady, got her purse. She had about $30,000 worth of jewelry in her purse that she was getting ready. She was traveling and she was getting ready to go to the airport. So she had everything that she had with her in the car, including her wallet with her credit cards. Well, our 2 all-stars took her credit card, went up to Northwest Plaza, started shopping. Clerk was suspicious, called the police. Long story short, they had a foot pursuit with these guys, caught them, got one guy with a gun, and the other guy with our victim that they had just robbed, got her credit cards in his pocket. So both of those guys were wanted for murder first degree in the city of St. Louis. So we have to get in line for this, so to speak. So our detectives still have yet gotten to crack to interview these guys. So, but they will, and so hopefully we will be able to make those robbery cases on our victims here. I think it's a really good case so far. So, kind of a crime of chance. They came in, did this little act here in Brentwood, but they were on a little crime spree. They had done other robberies in the area. So luckily those 2 are in custody and they remain in custody. Had a couple vehicles to finish this up. A couple vehicles broken into down on Van Markway. Of particular note, we had a victim that decided it'd be a good idea that after a stolen car broke into her car, that she would get in her car and chase the bad guys, which we don't really recommend, but a couple officers saw it, got involved in the pursuit, and they ended up going into East St. Louis. We are seeing a pattern of East St. Louis recoveries of our vehicles that are stolen and cars that are being chased into East St. Louis. So there's probably a very active crew out of East St. Louis hitting us right now. So be happy to answer any questions about crime or anything else. Anybody has anything?
Questions? I have one that was reported recently of carjacking that involved in Richmond Heights, actually, at a parking lot of a church. And I just didn't know if Brentwood had any involvement in that, or.
No, other than we responded, we get a call like that, they come to us, we go to them. So our officers went into the area looking, but they handled that one on their own.
Have you seen any uptick in the instance of that kind of, face-to-face, not
Armed robbery events?
the armed robbery events?
Yeah. Yeah, the short answer is yes, and they're taking different forms. For example, bump and runs are back where they hit you and then they get out and point a gun at you and take your car. Those are going on. City's had several of those over the last couple months. The guys that stole a car off of our gas station lot last month, they went to St. Charles and did 2 armed robberies, unrelated to anything else I've spoken about. So yes, they are. I've always said that this is a mix. It's not just 3 o'clock in the morning going through cars in Brentwood Forest. That crew, given an opportunity and a victim, will rob people too. They're really the same person. They just do different things depending on what presents itself to them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Cottrell?
Good evening and congratulations, Alderman. Absolutely. Tonight, I just have information in our department update. Nothing requires action, but I have a few topics I want to spend a little bit of time on just to dive a little deeper if I could. Before I get started, to answer your question, Alderwoman Sims, on depreciation of our vehicles, we're doing GEMT reporting right now, so I had the spreadsheet pulled up. For the fire department Tahoes, annually, we right now are at 5,900 and some change on depreciation. So just to give you that number. Training has been very good in the Brentwood Fire Department this year. We just concluded last week our live burns and facility trainings at West County. We spent a lot of time out there, and the crews performed very well. I'll get to that towards the end of the report as well. And then this week, part of our special operations and technical rescue skills and trained personnel, along with our drone program, we've been doing some drills at Six Flags, rescue scenarios of people trapped on the rides at really high elevation. So the crews have really been enjoying that and gaining some great experience. So we're working with our regional partners on that as well. ECDC update, it's been a busy week, which is very positive because we've been able to dive into a lot of concerns that we've been having for a year now. So I've been working with the assistant chief and the director at East Central on this week on mapping, routing, addressing, all of these things that affect how our units are dispatched to calls, how our units are selected to respond to certain calls, speed limits of all of our streets. So all of this has been reviewed. We've submitted several items for update. And so I think that goes back to Regis's obligation to work with us and make sure that their data and their CAD is accurate as possible. It's getting our equipment as quickly as possible to those in need. So it's kind of the sum up the ECDC update right now. The ambulance billing RFP started off with a bang. The day it went live, I received 2 requests from international companies and followed up very quickly by a lot of companies within the United States. So we're very excited. Next week, we anticipate having several companies bid, and we'll be bringing that forward in the month of November. The SSM medical direction. So this is one of the topics I want to dig in just a little bit, if I may. The fire department was notified in September by our medical director from SSM that they no longer were going to be able to provide the service for free. We are under contract with SSM through 2024. I did review that agreement, and 30 days notice is all that's necessary by either party. They have not notified us of terminating that agreement whatsoever. They indicated they would honor that agreement in the first meeting I had with them. I do not have any money included in 2024 budget for medical direction. Moving forward, we know we are going to have to take that into consideration. I am not familiar with any other medical groups in the region that offer it for free. SSM was the last standing to my knowledge. at the same time, they are the largest provider of medical direction, more than likely because they were free. So the bigger, I guess, let me start with, we're going to have to, the fire department will be looking at all of our options. So whether it's WashU, BJC, Mercy, SSM, we just have to look at the complete spectrum to see what serves our department best. The overarching priorities are aggressive protocols that we have today, that they empower our people to provide quick treatment. And then coupled with that, we need first-class training. And so who can offer that to us? I don't have any cost projections other than by word of mouth from anyone, so I won't even discuss that because I don't have any quotes. But that is something we will be working on and throughout 2024, and it will be part of our 2025 budget going forward. I want to answer this question, even if you haven't thought of it, which I'm sure you have. Why now? And we, being the St. Louis region, is experiencing essentially what the East Coast and West Coast have been experiencing for quite some time, and that is an absolute crisis in healthcare, especially the emergent healthcare. Most citizens no longer make appointments with their physicians. They go to either urgent care or emergency rooms. The unhoused people in the communities continues to increase. They get in situations, law enforcement's called, they're advised you can't stay here, you can't be here. Well, I'm suicidal, or I'm having chest pains. They say terminology that they know, they'll get transported to the hospital and will have at least a warm bed for one night. So those are examples of what we are experiencing right now in the St. Louis region. And it's costing the hospitals. So that's where I think SSM is looking at it, is why are we offering a free service? We need to be charging for medical direction. What's the fix? I don't have the answer, but I know we can't do it alone. I know from the state level, county level, the hospital systems, all the EMS providers, we have to work together. There's a pretty healthy model out of the state of Texas right now, as you could imagine, dealing with the immigrants. They have the mobile integrated health program, but they receive a ton of money from the state of Texas. So Missouri has not even entertained that. That's why several models have been attempted in the state of Missouri, but the funding just isn't there and it's not sustainable. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that and some of our challenges. It goes deep. It affects our people on a daily basis nearly. So do you have any questions on that topic before I move on?
What does it cost typically? What would it cost if they weren't doing it for free? What is medical director services? What do those normally cost?
I would anticipate we should be able to get it services for less than $40,000 per year for that medical direction, but that includes training. I've been
For who?
for our paramedics. It's the ongoing continuing education training. So it could be much less than that, but I think that's the extreme high end that we could be looking at.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else?
Yes.
What kind of services is meant by medical direction? I mean, I read the,
Sure. So first and foremost, it's the obligation by state statute that as an EMS service, we have to have this agreement and this oversight because us as paramedics, we operate under that physician's license. We are an extension of that physician working in the field. Correct.
But also the delivery of medication and things
Absolutely.
like that, I would imagine. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the development of the protocols, that's a very big component of that.
you have to have
Yes,
a medical director.
correct,
So
correct.
Was this announcement something that's countywide? I mean,
Yes.
it affects, I imagine, a number of municipalities.
Correct. Most of our immediate partners, but they extend into Jefferson County, Franklin County, Warren County. I mean, they have a very big footprint in the region.
As far as you know, the state has not even entertained the idea of making money available to municipalities to cover these costs?
No,
So the state's requiring you
correct.
to get this oversight, but
Correct.
not
Not-
anything as to how to pay for it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that's the EMS service of the state of Missouri. There are literally ambulance services in the state that operate solely on volunteers. And then you have the metropolitan regions that struggle because of the call volume and patient transports are so high. So it's everything in between. Okay, I'm gonna
So,
yeah, I'm gonna move on to our Motorola notification. So our radios, they were purchased by St. Louis County ECC 2013. They have reached end of useful life. We were notified in late September that the radios are no longer serviceable. So part of our capital improvement plan is to replace them in 2025. In the event we have a catastrophic break, the assistant chief and I have a plan to replace a single radio at a time. But if you think for the firefighters, it's very important because of the smoke environment or the hazardous environment that they may be in. Every radio has to be the same regardless of who's operating it. So we will ensure our firefighters have the same radio. The assistant chief and I may have a slightly different one until the purchase is made in 2025. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The Missouri Firefighter Critical Illness Pool. So I just wanted to provide an update. I did this at the Ways and Means, my presentation for next year's budget. And I know several members asked for an annual update. So do you have the slides or available to you? It was uploaded, I think. So they had their first membership meeting in September. So I wanted to provide this report. 2022 financials, so they ran from May 1st, I believe, through the end of December 31, 2022. They did have a net loss of $384,602. They had budgeted for a loss of $500,000. So they were pleased with that. They were pleased with the number of participants. And you fast forward to the next slide, slide number 2, and their 2023 year-to-date through August 31 of 2023. The investment income certainly helped, but the contributions increased dramatically. Again, they budgeted for another $500,000 loss for 2023, and they have not. They have gained money. So increased number of agencies participating is the theme right now. By the end of this year, they are estimating they will be over 100 agencies in the state of Missouri that participate in this program. So I was very pleased to be sharing this information. Before I get to my last listed item on the update, I wanted to bounce to another item that I've been talking with and meeting with Whitney Kelly, planning director, and my hopes, I am the one pushing this, to update the city's building codes and fire codes to the 2024 edition. They just published this month, and with the potential of upcoming construction in Brentwood, I think it is very important that we update to the latest version. There's 2 hot topics that you have already talked about tonight. One of them you've already talked about tonight. It is finally addressed in the fire code, and that's EV charging stations, battery storage systems. They're finally addressed in the building codes. So I think it would be prudent of us to get ahead of that curve and have this established before we seed major expansion in Brentwood. The second item that is addressed are rooftop units, whether they're for restaurants or bars or just other rooftop units in general. They're not addressed in the current code. It's silent in a lot of areas. So how to protect the people that are there, how to protect cooking appliances or whatever is in that space. So we have in the St. Louis region, we've had a couple of these rooftop units have incidents in them. One at Vindicet, which they just shut their doors. They're not going to come back with that restaurant. And so it was a very old building, don't get me wrong, but it's a rooftop unit that there was a high risk there. So a couple of items that are in the new code that I will be working with Whitney on and the new building official in 2024. I want to brag about our people for just a minute. So I had earlier this week, one of our firefighters, he's an engineer and also our training coordinator internally at our department. He just received his designation as a credentialed fire officer. So we're very proud of Darren. That's Darren Chavez. He's worked very hard to obtain this credentialing, and I know there's more. We have 2 more fire officers that are also working on that right now. That's part of our strategic plan, and so we're very pleased to share that. The last item, I'll wrap it up here, it's a good one, is Friday the 13th, all of our units were called to a house fire in the city of Webster Groves. All of our units responded. It was an active fire in a 3-story house. The resident was forced to escape out the 3rd-story window and climb onto the roof. She could not escape because of the fire being below her. It was a roof that was a steep pitch, and it was made of covered in slate tile, so very slick. She was trapped directly above this fire, and our Captain Urshan performed just tremendous risk. Just traversed it. He set the ladders in place, he got up there, and he got her down. His efforts were amazing. I witnessed it. I'm very proud of our crew, the rest of the crew, the way they supported him, getting the lines in place, getting the other ladders in place. This house, it was old, it was tough, it was a hard one to put out, and the firefighting efforts, the life-saving efforts, it was well coordinated. So I'm very proud of the Brentwood firefighters. That was very similar to the scenario we ran at live fire training this year. Was roof work and rescuing a victim. And it's not the first time we've had a training scenario and then immediately have a fire very similar. So very proud of our firefighters. So, may I answer any questions?
Anybody on the panel have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For that report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
I have just a few quick updates here for Public Works. Hanley Industrial Court, so the 88 curb cuts that are part of a crosswalk that we'll be putting in over by Hoffman Brothers and near the Brentwood School District building. We've called in locates, we've met with the ADA coordinator. The plan is to do the cuts starting Monday, put those ramps in, let the concrete cure, then we'll do the pavement treatments and the signage, and that'll get that project done. Manchester Road, the pedestrian crossings, the mid-blocks with the concerns. I know MoDOT's met with their electrician. They've ordered extra equipment. They just haven't put it up yet because it hasn't been delivered yet. So it'll be the additional flashers on the opposite side signs. So right now, like if you're at Cecilia or Manderley or any of those mid-block crossings, there's only a sign by you on one side of the road. The back side of the sign has nothing. So when you do press the button, it only flashes on one side, and it's only oncoming traffic that'll see it. You know, you want it actually on both sides of the road for oncoming traffic. So that'll help take care of that. Madge Avenue, we did get a traffic calming request for the block between Brentwood and Annalee, so we'll put the data collector up, run that for a couple weeks, and we'll bring a report back. The person did supply the signatures and forms, so everything's good with that. The one thing that's not on here, which I know has been posted, would be Manchester Road pedestrian tunnel, those pavers. I believe starting Monday, those will be ripped out and redone because there's parts of it that don't meet ADA slope. And that's on both sides of the tunnel. So once that's done, it's gonna be about a 3-week process because they have to take those out and relay those until you can get the slope to conform to what it should be. And the only other thing I had was with it being dark sooner, daylight savings coming up. If you see any streetlights that are out, you can call us. We'll call them into Ameren. We just need an address. If you can get the light number, fine. If you can't, if you can say what the address is, we've got a reference sheet that we can cross-reference the street light. I know with it being dark and raining this morning, we went out for a couple hours and picked up 6 of them. We'll continue to go out whenever it's dark and we've got time. But if anybody sees anything, they can certainly call us and we'll call Ameren.
I just have one to follow up. The solar light that's that in York Village, at
Right.
Middlesex and York. You had talked about waiting until wintertime, really, and then talking about maybe removing that branch that's directly over the top of that light. Is that still something that's on your agenda?
I'll let the arborist know, since that's something that Adam would take care of.
Gonna wait until wintertime
Are those
to
still
see?
working? I don't go back there. I don't know.
It works, but
Okay.
now that we have it's lower light, lower
Right.
time of light, it'll frequently sort of turn off at about 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just think that one branch extends down on the western side of it.
I know we spoke with the property owner and she was fine with
Have
us.
any problem with it? Yeah.
Yeah. But I knew that speaking with the arborist, that would take Davy because it's so high up.
Yeah, it's pretty high up. That's totally true. I just
Yeah.
was curious if you were following.
No,
up
I
on
can
it.
ask him. I'm sure it's something on his radar, but
Okay.
it doesn't hurt to ask.
They're performing great. I mean, the other 5 are.
I know they went out this morning and said they were working because
Yeah.
they said, well, I can use the app and I can query those and it'll tell me like when it last kicked on and when
Yeah,
it
they've
kicked
been
off.
great. Really good.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. It consists of the 2 sets of meetings, minutes from our last 2 meetings. Anybody have a chance to review those minutes? And does anybody have any changes, either redactions or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I guess I can ask for a yea or nay vote with regard to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda and those 2 items? Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? By acclamation or by roll call? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We have no old business, new business, but we do have one more citizen comment, section number 10. Is there anybody online or in the room here that wants to make a comment to this board with regard to a public safety issue? If so, I'll recognize you for a period of up to 3 minutes. Please identify yourself with your name and your address. Thank you very much. I'll declare the citizen comments closed, and seeing no other items on the agenda, I will tell you that we are going to adjourn.